call this meeting of the Huron School Board to order and ask the business manager to note the roll. And I'll ask everybody to stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance led by Ms. Snow.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The first item is adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
Move adoption.
Second.
A motion and a second to adopt the agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. That motion carries. For dates to remember, May 3rd is early release. May 8th is the next Board of Education meeting at 5:30 PM here in the Instructional Planning Center in the arena. May 22nd is the second board meeting of May at 5:30 PM. May 22nd is also the Athletic Awards Program at 7 PM at the high school auditorium. May 23rd is Class Day at 8 AM at the high school auditorium. May 24th is Baccalaureate at 8 PM at the arena. May 25th is 8th grade promotion at 7 PM at the high school auditorium. May 28th is graduation at 2 o'clock at the arena. May 29th is Memorial Day. There's no school that day. And May 31st is the last day of classes. That will be an early release day. And then June 1st is teacher checkout day. That is it for dates to remember. Next item is community input for items not on the agenda. Is there anybody present for that? I don't see anybody coming forward. So we'll move on to consideration of waivers for conflict disclosure. The school board is to review the disclosures and determine if the transactions or the terms of the contract are fair, reasonable, and not contrary to the public interest. In this case, a disclosure has been made by Sherry Nelson, who has been chosen to be a speaker at a conference, and will be receiving a discount on her conference rate to attend. So,
She's taking her own vacation day.
and she's taken 3 days vacation to do that. We're just doing the disclosure to cover our bases. Mr. Hayter.
I would make a motion that we approve the waiver and that the waiver is, the terms of the contract are fair, reasonable, and not contrary to the public interest.
Second. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approving that, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, say no. That motion carries. Now proceed with the consent agenda. The superintendent of schools recommends approval of the following. A, board approval of new hires. We have Terry Myers for summer grounds help, Aaron Miller and Rachel Smith as substitute teachers, Leah Branagh as the head coach for girls tennis. We have 2 resignations, one from Gary Casperson as the assistant coach for boys soccer, and one from Kelly Henrik, the assistant coach for varsity volleyball. D is consideration and approval of bills on the attached list. And E is permission to bid gas, diesel, and the vocational house for the 2017-2018 school year. As always, any member can remove an item or ask questions about an item or pass it all in one motion.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
There's a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. That motion carries. Now turn it over to the superintendent to celebrate successes in the district.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations to all the school organizations who awarded grant money from the Huron Youth Leadership Council. That's a wonderful program. We're very, very grateful for their generosity. Congratulations to Aubrey Rutledge for placing 5th in the state spelling bee held at USC in Vermillion. Aubrey's won local and regional competitions to qualify for state 3 years in a row. Congratulations, along with a thank you to everyone who was involved in a very successful prom. The way that our young people act and the organization that goes into putting it together, from the teachers that sponsor it to all of the parents that work late that evening, it's It's a wonderful activity, and most importantly, the information I have is that everyone is safe. And I think I have reason to celebrate there. I'm conscious of our time this evening, so I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you very much. As he noted, we do have one member who will be leaving because of the NHS induction banquet tonight. So we are trying to be efficient with our time tonight, but we don't want to shortchange anything either. So with that, we're going to call Roger Ehlers up to give the good news report from the technology department.
There's no worry to be worried about shortchanging. I'm not going to be shortchanged tonight. So I have a very short presentation tonight. I kind of wanted to follow up on what I was talking about last year. If you recall, last year, my good news report, we talked about some server technology, being able to virtualize some of the servers that we have. And I want to kind of come back and report about that. We talked about how the ability to virtualize servers would actually save the district money, and we kind of have some numbers on that now that we've been doing it for a year. I wanted to come back and kind of share some of that information and talk about how this new technology has kind of saved the district some money. So if you take a quick review of what server virtualization is, most people have an idea of what a server is. It's a big computer that you might have in your building or your department that kind of serves as a central location for applications, files, all those kind of things. Well, over the last 10 years or so, this idea of server virtualization has really taken off. And what it means is, instead of having one physical box that's a server for every single building or every single department, you can kind of virtualize that, and you get one big physical server, one big box, and then on that box you can actually create these workspaces or your own little what they call virtual servers. So instead of having to buy a new server and new hardware and new warranties and all those things for every little individual application or every individual department, you're able to kind of take what you've got in existing hardware and just make a virtual workspace or a virtual server for that technology or for that application or for that department to run all of their, to do all of their work. So previously, we talked about how one server per building. When I started working here 17 years ago, that's kind of what we set up, was every single building had their own server. And some departments did too, like the business office would have their own server on top of that. We might have ESL servers or other kind of servers that would do different specific applications for us. We had a typing server at one point. Lots of different hardware, lots of different technology. Now with this server virtualization, we're moving to the idea that we can have one big server that can do all of the work of those individual servers and save us tons of time and money. So we talked about the benefits last year, reducing capital outlay. Obviously, if you don't have to buy all those little individual servers, those costs add up after a while. And then the number of work hours it takes to set those things up. And I'll talk a little bit of a quick story on that at the end. So we can decide if we need a server really quickly, and I'll tell you a story about that in a minute as well. We can do those kind of things with a virtual server that we couldn't do in the past. And then finally, because of that, our department has a lot more flexibility. So into what we did this year. This last summer, we purchased our hardware to do the server virtualization. And we can show that in this last spring, about a year ago, we spent $36,000 on this new technology. It composed, a couple of different, a bunch of hard drives and a couple of big servers that we needed to do all of the work. And then on that server, so far, we have created 4 different virtual servers. And I won't go into details of what each one does, but we've created 4 different servers on that one piece of hardware. And then this summer, we're actually working on right now and deploying this summer 3 more servers. So that'll give us a total of 7 different servers that we're able to do the work on one piece of hardware. And so when you look at that $36,000, I went back and looked at the last 4 or 5 actual physical servers that we bought. And over the last 5 or 6 years or so, we spent the average cost was about $4,400 per server. So if you're gonna go out and buy a one server, it would cost average $4,400 or so. Okay, so when I multiply that out, if I keep that average, 7 real servers, if I would have had to go out and buy the 7 servers that we're currently utilizing or going to be utilizing in the next few months, I would have spent $31,000 on those servers, but I didn't have to spend any of that money because we had that virtual hardware in place. We were able to just create a server and do the work that that server needs to do without having to go out and get quotes and wait for new hardware to show up and pay somebody to come help set it up for us. We can just make a whole new server. So when you look at that, we've got so far in 1 year, we've got already an 85% return on investment. So we've spent $36,000, we've already saved $31,000 on not having to buy any new hardware this year, and that'll carry forward year over year and save us thousands of dollars, in the future. So I'm really excited about that technology and the idea that with all the flexibility and the cost savings, number one, and then the time savings for us that it takes to actually put those things together. So couple of quick stories at the end here just to kind of give you an idea of direct impact. How does all this geek stuff affect us in the classrooms and what we're doing with kids and with teachers? We use a server to manage all of the iPads in the district. Well over 1,000 iPads, closer to 2,000 iPads probably now. And we use this server called Casper to do that work for us, to manage the iPads, push applications to them, keep track of who owns them, we'll keep track of all the serial numbers, all of the inventory and everything. Well, that server that we were using last year started to die on us about September. And we worked with our support, and they said, best thing for you guys to do, get a new server. The server you have right now doesn't meet the specs that we need to have. Well, before our virtualization, I would have had to go out, talk to a vendor, get quotes, place an order, wait weeks and weeks for that server to show up, and then get it set up and deployed. With the virtualization, I called Mike and I said, Mike, we need a new server. This was about 10 o'clock in the morning. By 1 o'clock in the afternoon, he had a new server built for me virtually. And by the next morning, we were moving all of our data onto this new server. So from the time that we knew that we had a problem, within 24 hours, we had a new server deployed, and we were working to get all of that data from the old server that was dying on us and move all that information over in 24 hours. So there's hours of savings and things for everybody there too. Similar situation with our ESL testing server. I think it's February, the access testing goes on, and the ESL department, all of our ESL students are tested with this access testing. Well, we discovered as we were getting our server ready to do that the server was not working as it had worked previously, and it wasn't working for us. Same thing, I go to Mike and I said, Mike, I need to have a new server to do this ESL testing. Same scenario, within hours, we have a new server up, we had everything all moved over, and we were ready to test same day. So once again, if we would have had to wait for new hardware, that would have put in jeopardy all of the ESL testing that we had to do. So how does all of this geeky stuff, impact us? We wouldn't have been able to do some of the ESL testing that we have to do in February. And then all of the applications that we use for our Casper server to help with iPads. Teachers come and ask us all the time for new apps, ask us for information on those iPads, and we're able to give them that because that server is in place. So having that server up is crucial for us to help our teachers. And then that ESL testing server, same thing. Having that was crucial in order to be able to give those tests in a timely manner during that testing window. So we were really excited that this project has been a long time coming for us, and it's actually starting to pay dividends now, both financially in the cost of the capital outlay dollars, and then also in the direct impact on people using them for instruction. So we're really excited about this technology, and I just kind of wanted to come back and share that with you folks so you would have kind of an idea of where we're going with that. It's kind of stuff that people don't always see. It's kind of in the background, nobody really pays attention to all that stuff, but it's there and it's important to us, and it really helps us give the teachers and the students what they need to be successful in the classroom. So that's really all I have. I'm trying to keep it short tonight also, so if you have any questions or anything, I'll be glad to answer those for you.
Roger, I can understand one server per building.
Yep.
I understand that piece of hardware in every building. So now you've gone to virtualization, so you've got one granddaddy server. And from there, is this cloud technology you're dealing with? You know, when you're talking about virtual, what are the limitations? I mean, how many crises can you have before your $36,000 investment's full?
The system that we have in place right now is not really a cloud system per se. It all stays in-house, inside of our network. So it's not like a Dropbox technology or Google technology that's just kind of out there for everybody to be able to use. But it does have some scale to it. I mean, we're using, you know, as much hard drive space as we need right now, but we have several empty slots in our system right now that are just sitting there waiting for us to put in more hard drives and grow that thing out. So as we come up with more needs, more servers or whatever that we need to replace over time, we have the growth, you know, built into that, so we can just slap in a few more hard drives and keep right on going with the technology. So it isn't cloud-based per se, but it does have that, you know, redundancy ability and that of the cloud and you know, general access, you know, 24/7.
So if you need to add another server and you don't have the capacity, you're easily able to put more hard drive into it to get what you need.
Correct. We got
Which is inexpensive to do.
relatively inexpensive as opposed to buying a whole new server. Yes, a server, you know, hard drives are hundreds of dollars versus a whole new server, which may only be needed for one thing, like this ESL testing thing. It was something we needed for 1 month.
Right.
And not even that much hard drive space. We just needed to have its own entity. And so we were able to just create that and not have to go out and spend capital outlay dollars. We just create it. And then, you know, in fact, in next year, we may actually, you know, expand that out and do more of our testing, more of our ESL testing using that technology. Just because it gives us so much flexibility. If things aren't working right, you can totally erase that and rebuild it again in minutes if things aren't going the way you want them to go. So it's really impressive technology, and we really like it to be able to get our work done quickly.
Thank you.
Yep.
Is there a backup system? So you got one real large main server that, I'm not probably explaining it right, but
Yep.
is there a backup then if that goes down, or how does that work?
We are in the process right now of building that out, so we actually have a redundant system. We have backup hard drives and things like that right now that back up those arrays. And then eventually what we want to do is actually have a redundant total array so that if one fails over, we actually have two that are kind of there now, but we kind of have some tweaking there to get that done. But yeah, that's kind of the next phase is, now that we're getting some important stuff on there, we need to kind of make sure there's failover there and make sure that we have backups in place. So there's some limited backup there now. And then there's the technology of being able to, of the hard drives, if one drive fails, you can actually take out a drive, put in a new drive, and the other drives actually copy all of their information over to that new drive again. So again, it goes way, way beyond what we need to talk about here today, but just know that that's available to us to be able to keep it all safe, yes.
So, my understanding was you'd have one server per building because you'd have that entire building wired into that one server.
Right.
So how are buildings wired then? Do they even still use hard wires, most of the computers, or are more of them wireless? If you don't have one server per building, where are those wires going?
You have, what we have is, the way our network is laid out, all of our networks end up kind of through the wires, go back to the vocational building. The vocational building is kind of our central core closet where the vast majority of our servers live. And so from there, with the networking, we're able to actually make all of that, all of the outer buildings kind of point back to that as kind of the spot to be able to save things. So, yeah, it's all, and then Midco helps us with that, with the gathering these outer buildings and kind of bringing them back over to the high school and the vocational building to get that data back to where it needs to be.
Okay.
Yep.
Any further questions?
Obviously, Mr. Dramstead is a key part of this, so I was watching him to make sure that Mr.
Was he
Alvers
doing
accurate.
any of this while I was talking?
Actually,
or-
actually, he treated you pretty well. I didn't get too many shakes.
That's good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to our superintendent's report.
All right, I'm going to try to run through quite a few things. Mrs. Waylander got a hold of me just before the meeting to let me know. She said, I know you don't follow all this, but that Huron High senior Ty Evers was announced as a finalist for Mr. Basketball. So I wanted to publicly congratulate Ty on that and wish him good luck in that competition. There's a 4th and 5th grade concert that is going on tonight, and it's at the 4-5 Center, right, Dad? And the 4th graders will be starting here in just a minute, and I'm trying to get a board member to the 5th grade portion of the concert later, so we'll hurry along. We have another board member that is celebrating his daughter at National Honor Society tonight, and that starts at 6:30. There is no negotiations session this evening, as we have received preliminary information from the teachers that the work that was done by the board members has been accepted by their group, and so now it goes to Mr. Freeman to review it all, and then it'll come to us for formal ratification at the next meeting. So the negotiations planning session tonight in executive session is for board members to now give us direction on the next steps, which is with the classified and the administration and that type of thing, as we go into that. So I just wanted to make sure I clarified purpose for that. I believe that all of you have indicated you can come to the employee banquet, and of course it has huge significance this year as you put into practice something that the board worked on for several years in putting together a package of recruitment and a package of retention. And I know from documents that I send out to you that you watch very closely the components of all of that and how is that working to put together the longevity of a staff and allow us to bring in top staff when they're open. And obviously, as we are advertising for only 1 or 2 positions right now, the end of recruitment has certainly worked for us. And so a step to recognizing teachers by each 5 years, all staff by each 5 years that they are with us, was something else you worked on a long time. And so I thank you for being there to participate in that recognition part at the employee banquet, which comes up in May. Right now, the staff is working on preliminary preparation for a major in-service this summer featuring a gentleman named Chris Weber as we look into response to intervention. And your superintendent is reading as much as I can so that I share with the cabinet and the administrators being on the front end of this. I'll do the best I can, and you can all watch the cabinet to see if they shake their head like Mike could have for Roger to make sure that I'm as accurate as possible on this. But statewide, we must have a response to intervention plan in order to make sure that we are meeting the needs of students who should not be put into special education. That to go into special education, you must have qualifying factors, but we have lots of kids with needs, and so we have to train a staff in order to figure out how to intervene with those students, which then meets their needs and keeps special education for the students who truly qualify for that. It is something that legally we are obligated to do. We could have just washed our hands and had the state come in and present that. But we made the decision as a district that our clients are so unique and our mixture of languages is so unique that we wanted to bring someone in who is an expert in this area and has lived it. That the school district that this person has served has had every bit as much diversity of economics as our families, and every bit the diversity of race and backgrounds as our families, so that when we put a response to intervention in, it's applicable directly to our school. And so you're going to find as we go forward that I'll present this and we'll bring in Chris Weber electronically for the staff to meet him over the screen on our May 3rd in-service. And that will be an introduction from him to us and us to him. And then he will be here 4 days in June. He'll be here June 22nd with the elementary staff, June 23rd with the middle school staff. Then a week later, the last 2 days, Thursday, Friday, and so 22nd, 7th, the 29th, with the high school staff, and the 30th with the entire administrative team on what do we do and what does it look like to intervene with our students. Now, something I picked up even in a cabinet meeting today, the interesting thing about RTI, response to intervention, is that it's almost a backward term, because we can come up with how we're going to intervene with students, but until we measure how they're responding to those interventions, we don't know if we're being successful or not. And so it is upper level thinking stuff that's kind of stretching your superintendent, but I'm pedaling as fast as I can, and this is the next wave of constantly changing how we meet the needs of students, because our students across America are rapidly changing. So I just wanted to bring you up to date that that's heavy lifting that's going on by the faculty and by their leaders. Okay, I've had some questions, and so I want to remind people that as our chairman said, May 31st is the final day, and I may or may not get a column written on this, but there's been some questions about, well, what is the need for the final 2 days and going after Memorial Day, et cetera. And so I'm trying to compile some things as far as the investment that the taxpayers make each day that we provide services. And then when the question comes up, well, does anything really happen on the last 2 days? Well, the first thing I want to state is that the high school is having semester tests on Tuesday the 30th, and then their checkout day is on the 31st. With the rest of the grades, what I would say is, and this is a term I learned from the great respect I had for Dr. Zitterkoff, is that you're always going to have the last couple of days. You could have the last couple of days, May 14th and 15th, or you could have the last couple of days the way we originally had them scheduled for Thursday, Friday before Memorial Day, or you're going to have the last couple of days now. Ours will be on Tuesday and Wednesday. But whenever you have them, they're going to be the last couple of days. So if we said, well, these 2 days, nothing's really going to happen, and we move all of that checkout and turn in your books and all those things, we're still going to lose 2 days of instruction. So it's hard, but I guess what I'm prepared to kind of share with the public that chooses to watch this is that there's give and take in everything. And if we're a community that chooses to start after Labor Day, then we're going to be a community that wrestles with two issues. What happens with snow as far as going after, and what happens if you try to take those days during the year when people have already planned trips via the Easter break or a spring break. And so that will continue to be dialogue, but I'm just conscious of those questions, and I'll do the best I can to answer them. And then finally, I think it behooves me to publicly let you all know that on Thursday night, I will be in Vermillion to be on South Dakota Public Television for their South Dakota Focus program this Thursday. And they're going to feature very small schools and declining enrollment. They're going to feature Harrisburg and the rapid increase in enrollment. And now they've determined to feature Huron for the very uniqueness of the 10 years of enrollment decline, followed by the 10 years of enrollment surge, and what does that do in a community. So I'll try to have done the research with all of our administrators as far as making sure I have accurate enrollment numbers and accurate dollar numbers and an accurate profile of all the wonderful things really that have been happening in one of the fastest changing communities in South Dakota, but that's Thursday night. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions for our superintendent? Seeing none, we'll move on to old business. First item is substitute teacher wages. This is now a first reading, because this is a policy change. And so we had introduction the last meeting. This will be first reading of the amendment to policy GCE and GDE. So, are there any questions?
Just a change for the public is we had not moved those wages in about 8 years, and getting substitutes is very difficult. And those that do sub are folks in town that, we would like to have them come back into the workforce that are retired, et cetera. And we believe that a wage of $120 gets us back in line where perhaps we can start getting people. So that has not moved with small increments, and so we're asking for an adjustment from $100 to $120.
If there's no further discussion, that will lay over then until the next meeting, where it will be up for second reading and final adoption. Okay, then that takes us to item B under old business, social studies curriculum adoption, and Sherry Nelson will be presenting on this.
Good evening. The purpose of this report is to identify the K-12 social studies curriculum delivery model. The South Dakota Board of Education adopted a new set of social studies standards in August of 2015. The new state standards were designed to foster responsible decision-making that benefits the local and tribal community, state, nation, and world. The new content standards place an emphasis on literacy and also include skill-based college, career, and civic readiness and thinking skills. The social studies content standards are organized into 4 disciplines: history, geography, civics and government, and economics. Each discipline is addressed at appropriate grade levels with increasing rigor and relevance. Grade level outcomes specify what students should know and be able to do by the end of each grade level. The standards provide a framework for the teaching and learning of social studies content, concepts, and skills. However, the real goal is to inspire students to be committed, participating citizens. The social studies curriculum study began in the fall of 2016, and when the social studies K-12 teachers reviewed the social studies standards. They also identified priority standards for each grade level, developed scope and sequences for each course, and they created proficiency scales for all priority standards. This work was facilitated by the instructional coaches and the Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment, and was monitored by the building principals. November 14th, 2017, the Director of Instruction shared an informational report with the school board regarding proposed procedures and timelines for the social studies curriculum adoption. Prior to vendor presentations, curriculum advisory committees consisting of staff, parents, and students per board policy IIAA reviewed and evaluated sample instructional materials from a variety of vendors using a customized matrix. After evaluating the instructional materials, committee members were invited to attend the vendor presentations that were held January 31st, 2017. Following the presentations, staff committee members returned to their buildings to discuss their findings with their colleagues. When staff consensus was reached, the Director of Instruction met with the curriculum advisory committees from each building to listen to staff, parents, and students recommend instructional materials and support their choices with reasoning. The proposed instructional materials were on display in the Instructional Planning Center February 21st through 22nd, 2017, and members of the community were invited via the February 13th board meeting, a mention in the February 14th edition of the Huron-Plainsman, and posted on the district's social media accounts to review the selected materials. We did not have any community members take advantage of this opportunity. The feedback gathered by the district via the Social Studies Curriculum Advisory Committees shows strong support for the proposed instructional materials. The elementary schools, the 3 elementary curriculum advisory committees reviewed offerings from 4 vendors, and you can see by this screen that they have recommended Pearson's My World Social Studies, grades K through 5, copyright 2013. Reasons for selecting this curriculum included 7 years of consumables, which can be written in by students, 1 for each student, leveled readers with pre-written lesson plans, instructional materials that can be projected on smartboards, established writing prompts for each unit, and multiple ELL supports. The Middle School Curriculum Advisory Committee reviewed offerings from 4 vendors and recommended Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, but has elected to postpone the purchase of their instructional materials until the 2019 copyright for grades 6 and 7 becomes available this winter. Currently, only grade 8 is available with the 2018 copyright. Committee members cited many reasons for selecting the HMH materials, including the balance of online and print resources, well-organized materials, the ability to work online and offline, interactive maps, the large quality of supporting videos that are easy to access, the ability to customize assessments to correspond with priority standards, establish guided reading lesson plans, as well as many ELL supports. Additionally, the same group of teachers selected HMH instructional materials last year for their science curriculum and are extremely satisfied with the materials and the vendor support. The high school Social Studies Committee reviewed 4 textbook companies and selected Houghton Mifflin Harcourt for World History and U.S. History. The committee selected McGraw-Hill for Geography, Economics, Psychology, Sociology, Street Law, and Government. Factors influencing the committee's decision included the balance of online and print materials, content layout, good coverage of the priority standards, the ability to edit presentation materials, guided reading workbooks, and text written within the appropriate Lexile levels. Professional development will continue through the 2017-2018 implementation year. This summer and next fall, teachers will meet with the Director of Instruction and their instructional coaches to receive professional development in the areas of backwards planning, developing effective assessments, designing and delivering units of instruction that specifically align to learning targets. Teachers will also explore common problems in unit design and how to avoid the pitfalls when planning new units. During this curriculum development work, the teachers with guidance from the Director of Instruction and instructional coaches will begin designing one unit utilizing the newly purchased curriculum materials. Next year, the Director of Instruction will visit classrooms so teachers can demonstrate the lessons they have developed using the new materials. Advisory committee participation. The elementary committees were made up of 6 teachers across grade levels K through 5, 3 instructional coaches, 2 SIAP coaches, 3 administrators, and 4 parents. The middle school committee was made up of 3 teachers across grades 6 through 8, 1 instructional/SIAP coach, 2 administrators, 2 parents, and 3 students. The high school committee was made up of 5 teachers representing all courses, 1 SIAP coach, 2 building administrators, 2 parents, and 3 students, 1 who is currently serving as the student representative on the school board. In summary, the elementary, middle school, and high school social studies advisory committees, under the guidance of the Director of Instruction, have reviewed the 2015 South Dakota Social Studies Standards in preparation for this study, and the proposed K-12 social studies curriculum aligns to these standards. The proposed instructional materials have been viewed and recommended by the social studies curriculum advisory committees, building administrators, instructional coaches, and social studies teachers. Professional development is an important part of this adoption and will continue this coming summer and throughout the 2017-2018 school year. If you look to the slide again, you can see the totals for elementary and the 2 companies for the high school materials. And you will notice that there is no total for the middle school because we're delaying their purchase until later this year. Administrative recommendation to the school board would be to approve the K-5 and 9-12 social studies curriculum adoption for the 2017-28 school year. And curriculum for grades 6 through 8 will be brought to the board for approval this winter when Houghton Mifflin Harcourt 2019 copyright materials become available for purchase. What questions can I answer for you?
So, at this point, you're not asking us to adopt the middle school recommendations?
Correct.
That'll come back before us once we've gotten the numbers on that.
Right. We saw estimated totals for 8th grade, and if they hold similar to 8th grades, we think the price will be reasonable, but at this time, we're just gonna hold completely and keep all the middle school purchases together.
And so for 2017, 2018, elementary and high school will have new textbooks, but the middle school will be using their current ones for another year?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And then the plan would be is we would order those books still this year. They'd get them this winter, the middle school I'm talking about. They'd get them this winter. We'd go ahead and start working on the professional development, the designing of those units within the school year. And so they would be able to hit the ground running the following year.
Questions? Mr. Hayter?
We talked in November, I know, about the process and procedure, and I know we talked about some tweaks to that, and it sounds like you made those, and I also would like to thank those that served on the committees, and not only from the staff, but from the public, the students and the parents that were involved.
Yes, definitely. I thought that the parents had interesting comments. They were more than willing to help us, but didn't feel very confident in their ability to help. But I think they learned a lot from the process about what goes on in selecting materials. And it seems like they felt like it was beneficial to them to do it. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
You looking for a motion to approve that purchase?
I believe we would be.
I'd make that motion.
I would second that.
So it's a motion to approve the purchase for the high school and the elementary grades. As a motion, a second to approve that. Any further discussion?
K through 5 and 9 through 12, right?
Is that what I said?
Yep.
Okay, yeah,
Right.
K, yep, K5 and 912.
Yep.
Did you enjoy being on the committee there, Jasmine?
It was a lot of reading. But yes, I did. It was fun. I think it was like 3 mornings that we would just go and sit down and read through all these books that were saying the same thing. Font was definitely a big argument that the 3 of us had in the room. It was always the font, so, but no, it was very beneficial. I liked it a lot.
Thank you. And thanks for serving on that committee. Any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote then. All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, say no. That motion carries. Thank you very much. That's it for old business. We have no new business. The only remaining item is an executive session for the purpose of preparing for contract negotiations or negotiating with employees or employee representatives under SDC 1-25-2 subsection 4. So I'd entertain a motion to go into executive session for that purpose.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second to do so. I would just note that there'll be no further action, no action taken after that meeting. We'll just adjourn. All in favor of approving that motion to go into executive session, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, say no. That motion carries. We will be in recess for a few minutes.